Hey guys, so it has now been 6 months since we were first introduced to this idea of the Legends team essentially renewing their philosophy on designing new characters. And at that time, the end of March, we ended up getting this Legends team newsletter, which went into very deep detail regarding exactly how they were going to address the problem, and they gave a pretty big breakdown on some of the issues that they were going to tackle or try to tackle with this change in their design strategy. So now that it's been 6 months since this has happened, I did want to just go through essentially every major release that we've received since the beginning of April and take a look and essentially just rate how they have done. So we're going to do this in a very easy to understand manner. I have a tier list pulled up here. I should probably just zoom in a little bit. I have a tier list pulled up here with all the new characters, pretty much every major release. Again, LF or Ultra. I did not want to include the 1% sparkings in here just because I feel like it's a much better and clear-cut case with the LFs and Ultras as opposed to 1% sparkings, who they're clearly going to invest more development time and resources into these characters as they're the premium releases. And all we're going to do is we are going to put the characters in either success or failure in terms of not how good or bad the characters are, but just how did the characters perform, and I guess how did they perform with regard to the new design philosophy? Did their design match up with the stated issues and objectives of this Legends team newsletter? So what I've done here is I've essentially boiled down, because this is huge. I mean, I did go over this in depth many different times across different videos over the course of the past 6 months. But essentially what they're saying in here is I've boiled this down to 3 major points. And they do have an objective section here. The first part is talking about just making character abilities easier to understand, which I do think they have achieved this, right? This is just them essentially redoing how they actually write the character abilities. And we did see that with the character starting to release in April. It's much more streamlined, and it's in a bullet point format. It's easier to understand. It's not like blocks and blocks and blocks of text. So they did achieve this, but this isn't really what we're talking about in this video today. They mention as the second point under the objective section to return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. So I'm going to put that down as point number 1 of what we're going to be looking at today. So that's point number 1. Point number 2 is this right here under the current challenges section. A large number of characters have abilities that are too broad, and this has damaged the original appeal of Legends battle experience, and as a result of this, things ended up becoming very homogenous. What this means is essentially these characters have so many abilities that like 80 to 90% of like all releases in 2024 just ended up being the same character with very slight variations in the abilities, right? As more and more characters have been added, the number of characters with any given ability has increased. As a result, characters have become more and more homogenous, making their individual characteristics harder to grasp. So what this is talking about is the identity of each release has essentially just become null and void almost, right? We get character A who comes out, and then character B who's a separate release from character A, but there's really not too big of a difference between those two characters. That is a huge issue that they tried to address with this character design strategy shift here. And then the last point, I did also just want to mention this real quick. So down here, they start talking about more specific issues with actual kit design when it comes to particular mechanics. This one to me was the most important, and I remember highlighting this many times back when this newsletter first dropped. Adjustments to disruption and recovery abilities. This was really the biggest problem with Daima. Daima as a team came out, and they had so much disrupt that you actually couldn't even fight the team. And that was a huge problem. And this is a section that they have here just talking about essentially characters that were made with way too many disruption abilities. We plan to gradually reduce excessive disruption and recovery abilities in future characters, making up for the difference with more fundamental abilities. Specific example where reduced ki by 40 would have been considered previously, the character will instead get reduced ki by 20 and higher damage guard value. So essentially what they're saying is we really overdid it with the disruption mechanics leading up until this point. So starting with this new design philosophy in April, we're going to be cutting back majorly on a lot of these disruption abilities. And to make up for that, characters are just going to be bulkier. That's kind of what they're saying with this. But they do, again, I've pointed this out many times before as well, they do specifically say we plan to gradually reduce excessive disruption. So not all at once. We're not going to go from reduce ki by 90, seal main ability, paralyze you, seal your cards, and kill Dragon Balls, to kill one card and lower ki by 20, right? That's not what we're doing, because it says gradually. So that's going to be the third point here. So I'm really going to be looking at those 3 points in particular when we go through these characters here. So we'll just go in order. I have each character here pulled up, and we'll just either rate them as success or failure. So it's going to be very, very easy. It's going to be very white or black, right? Very, very clear cut here in terms of whether or not I think they've been a success or a failure. Again, this is, to reiterate, this is not talking about if I think the characters are strong or weak. That is not what we're talking about here. This is specifically how well do these characters fit with Legend's own description of how they were designing this new philosophy behind developing these characters, right? Do these characters fit in with what they were, with the stated objectives of this design philosophy change? Because if they don't, then that's a huge problem. So let's start here. Again, this is the first campaign we had post new design philosophy change. We have Demon King Piccolo and Kid Goku, who are part of the DB team celebration in April, right before the 7th anniversary. So I guess we could start with Demon King Piccolo. So for Demon King Piccolo, unfortunately, this is a character that I personally have been waiting for 7 years for. And we finally ended up getting a Demon King Piccolo. I would have preferred if he was an Ultra, just because I feel like that kind of more fits the character. He doesn't really do a legendary finish. I mean, they made one up. Well, they didn't make it up, but they used the animation from Demon King Piccolo that wasn't like super worthy of legendary finish animation. I think it would have been much better if they just gave this guy an Ultra and had his intro, him killing Shenron or something like that. But Demon King Piccolo, unfortunately, I don't think this is a revelation by any means, but unfortunately, I think this is one of the single worst designed characters, not just LFs, not just Ultras, not Sparkings, one of the single worst designed characters in the history of this game. It's pretty bad. So again, we could just go through the checklist here. Return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. If we look at this character's kit and what he's doing, there's nothing in here that really checks that box. What they tried to do with this character is, like, I would say 90% of this character's power is built into this mechanic, the Rising Rush activation one time. He is getting a hand with one type of each card: strike, blast, special move, and a green card. Healing by 20%, getting 40% rush damage. This is the biggest part of this. Nullifying endurance, and it's uncancelable. He's getting 2 Dragon Balls, he's reducing ally sub count by 10, and he's lowering enemy Dragon Balls by 3. This is even to this day, in October, this is incredibly strong. The only problem with this is if your rush gets guessed, this character is basically worthless. He is doing nothing. Basically, if you look at this whole kit, I wish I could highlight multiple things here. If we just do this, everything outside of this, you take a look at everything. Can I highlight multiple things? No. You take a look at this. I mean, literally, like, everything. The only text that really matters on the screen is this. Everything else is just so undertuned. It's insane. So, return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. I don't think so. Number 2 in the checklist, abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designed roles. I think that's fine. I think he definitely checks that box. He's not he's not overly defensive. He's not really supporting. He's kind of just focused on what he's trying to do with his offensive abilities. And then, of course, everything's centered around the Rising Rush. So that's fine. And then the third one is disruption and recovery abilities. This character, I mean, they even mentioned this in the newsletter here. If we go down here, tag regeneration characters would have abundant ways to restore their health. In other words, each character had distinctive characteristics. It's funny that they mention this, and then the very first character they release, Demon King Piccolo, who's a regeneration character, has basically no healing anywhere besides his main and when he uses a rush, right? And I guess when he gets a Dragon Ball, he's healing too. But like, this is a type of character you would expect to like get health whenever he's hit, get health when he enters the battlefield, have a second life because he's a regen character, but he doesn't. I'm not going to really hold him too much to that because, again, his whole kit is really designed around the Rising Rush. So I don't really think this third point of overly disruptive. I don't think he definitely doesn't fit that bill either. But it really is that first point, returning to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. This is his distinct character ability, and it is just terribly designed. So he's going to go in failure. All right, the next character we're going to look at is Kid Goku. This was the second major release for the DB team. This is a super easy one. This is actually probably one of the easiest ones we have on this list. Return to battle where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Hell no. Hell no. This is actually the biggest complaint that I had with the character. I think I even said this in his breakdown video. When I did this guy's breakdown video, there is absolutely nothing unique anywhere at all about this character. He's not doing anything special. He's got indestructible, but like indestructible is not a new mechanic. Indestructible, we just had a character before this guy who had indestructible with Daima Super Saiyan 4 Goku, right? It was limited to the Daima team, and this guy has indestructible pretty much wherever you use him, which I guess is kind of is valuable for sure. But there is nothing anywhere here that is like a character defining super unique ability, which is 100% what they need to be doing with characters. So automatically we can't check off that box for the first point in the checklist. The second one is abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. Sure, this guy is like one of the most one-dimensional characters we've ever seen. And then number 3, disruption and recovery ability bloat. Definitely not. This guy's like 0 disrupt. So hell no, we're putting this guy in failure. Okay, so now we head into the anniversary characters. Okay, UI Goku. This is actually the character I am not 100% sure on if I'd put him in success or failure. And we can just go through the 3 points again. Return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. I kind of like what they've done with this character's kit in terms of how they make it feel like you're mastering UI, where you have to use cards to get his full abilities. I do really like this. This is cool. It kind of fits the bill with how UI was in the show, and they kind of tried to emulate that with this mechanic. So I do like this. The only real major concern I have with this character's design, just when it comes to this first point in the checklist, is they've just copy and pasted the same exact Ultra Instinct Goku dodge meter for 6 years. It's been literally, I say it's 5 years. It's been 5 years. For 5 years, all they've done is they've copy and pasted the same auto dodging gauge every single UI Goku release. At some point, when we get a new UI Goku, we're going to have to try something new, right? I hope whenever they drop Ultra UI Goku, like not the UI Sign Goku, Ultra Mastered UI Goku, I hope they try something different with him and don't just copy and paste the exact same dodging gauge, because we've had the same dodging gauge for like 5 different UI Gokus. Please try something new, right? Because we had Purple UI, we had Revival Green UI, we had Ultra UI, we had Red UI, and now this is the 5th UI Goku with the same gauge. It's the same one. So that was extremely disappointing to me. Again, if you want to use that as leverage to not put him in success, I think I could get behind that for sure. But I do like the way that they designed him in the way that it feels like you're actually mastering UI to get to this, right? You don't have to use all of these cards to get his full kit up. Like, you can just transform without getting this up, but then you'd be missing out on the cost reduction, be missing out on some damage. So that is like a toll that you could take just to get the transformation out more quickly if you can't find time to fit in those cards to get the full mechanics up. But I mean, there's also some other points in here that just don't feel fun to play against. Like, obviously, the biggest problem with this character by far is the fact that he has a counter green. Still to this day, no idea why they gave him this. But yeah, I mean, there's things you could point to with this character that you could say, okay, like, I think they did a good job with this. I think they didn't do a good job with this. This right here, where is this? Where is this? This one right here. When on battlefield and enemy switches, he gets 30% of his unique gauge back, right? This is also applicable to enemies using tag switch gauges. This is just insane. Like, this is so annoying to fight against. So I don't particularly like the UI Goku play style. But again, I'm not 100% sure on if I would check the box for number 1 or not. Number 2, abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. This is also something that I'm not too sure about, right? This is a dodging character. If you look at every single Ultra Instinct Goku that's ever dropped in the game, they've all been very squishy and easy to kill for the most part. The one exception, I guess, kind of is Ultra UI Goku, the Ultra UI Saiyan one, because he has an auto counter specifically against strike cards. So that guy was extremely, like, that's honestly, that Ultra UI Saiyan Goku, he led one of the worst metas of all time. It was him, Goku, and Bardock, and Green Pikkon. And I just have very, very bad memories of that character. The thing with this UI Goku is this guy has this. He has cost increase stacking debuffs, he's reducing enemy ki, and he's healing himself. This is a mechanic that I just don't think UI Goku should have. I think the reason why they did this is because they knew they were about to drop some insane stuff at part 2 and part 3 of the anniversary, and they just really wanted this character to have a fighting chance, or I guess more of a fighting chance against the green characters that were about to be dropped. But this just doesn't feel like a UI Goku ability. UI Goku should be almost always built around his dodging, and if UI Goku gets caught, then UI Goku takes damage and UI Goku is exposed, right? That should be the character's identity. So this is kind of not too sure why he has this. But outside of this, I mean, he doesn't have crazy disrupt. He has endurance, which, I mean, people were arguing when this guy first dropped whether or not he needed endurance. And I definitely didn't think he needed endurance right when he dropped, because again, when this guy dropped in part 1 of the anniversary, I would easily say this was by far the best character. It wasn't even close. He was by far the best character in the game. Obviously, things quickly changed in parts 2 and 3 of the anniversary, but we were looking at some of the abilities this guy had, and we were like, dude, what did they do? They went so overboard with this character. But in hindsight, it really wasn't the worst thing of all time. But yeah, again, I'm not too sure if I would check the box off for that second ability. And then number 3, disruption and recovery ability bloat. It's kind of the same thing we already looked at. That kind of fits in with the second point, right? Abilities are not too broad, plus having disrupt. For UI Goku in particular, again, I would consider having excessive disrupt the same thing as ability bloat, because he doesn't need that, technically speaking. But again, you could kind of make the argument considering what came out after this character. So again, I'm not 100% sure if I'd put him into success or failure, but I am leaning a little bit more towards putting him in failure, because it's just, it really is the fact that they just copy and pasted the same gauge for the 5th time. for the 5th time in a row. But if you wanted to put him in success, I think that's fair, but I'm going to put him in failure. All right, so the next character is Evolution Blue Vegeta. To me, this is also a very, very obvious pick. The first thing on the checklist, return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Do you guys think Purple Evolution Blue Vegeta have allowed battles to return to a state where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable? No. No. This character's defining ability is his unique gauge being the evolve type. This is the first time we've seen the evolve type unique gauge introduced into the game. We do now have a second character with the evolve type unique gauge with LF Android 13, but for this Vegeta's evolve type gauge, this was just simply not what this needed to be. Evolution Blue Vegeta, and I actually do point specifically to this character as one of the biggest issues that's kind of happened meta-wise this entire year, because if this guy was better, UI Goku would have had a lot of more time in the spotlight as a successful character, even against these green characters, because this guy would be backing him up, and then you'd have more viable options for teams, and then Kefla would have been better because Universe Reps would have been better, and then Super Vegeta would have been better because Kefla was better. Like, it all kind of stems from this character being very, very underwhelming on release. And when we look at what they tried to accomplish with this character with his unique age, it just simply was not there. One other point to mention about this character in particular is they do have a section in this newsletter specifically talking about increase in characters with high combo power. Let me just see here. With combo capabilities continuously on the rise, matches often devolve into one-sided affairs where one player is on the receiving end of a lengthy combo. Currently, there are few opportunities to switch from defense to offense and vice versa, and this has damaged the play experience in battle. What do? They drop Evolution Blue Vegeta, whose entire identity is about comboing. His entire identity is about comboing. So I just can't, in good faith, put him anywhere even close to success, so we got to put him in failure. So far, we are not off to a good start here with the rating of these characters. Okay, so that was part 1 of the anniversary. Now we're heading into part 2 of the anniversary. Here's where things might get a little bit controversial with my opinions here. So now we have Kaioken Goku. Let's just go through the checklist once again. Number 1, return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. I don't particularly think this guy really is a culprit when it comes to that. Like, I think it's fine. I think there's nothing in his kit that really goes against that. His defining ability is the fact that he only has damage, like his maximum damage for the first few times where he subs in. He's force drawing cards. He can go type neutral on the green. Like, it's you know, I wouldn't really call this like a super unique and innovative character, but you can kind of see what they're going with this character. And then he's got the Kaioken, which like kind of allows you to draw out the rest of his power for a few switch-ins. Then you kind of fizzle out after you've swapped in and out a few times. And yeah, that's kind of the way this guy works. So sure, I mean, I don't think there's anything egregious about this. And he was good, right? I mean, character abilities being viable, this guy certainly was very good. Number 2, abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. And then point number 3, disruption and recovery ability bloat. This is the area where I think this character kind of is a bit of a culprit. And it specifically has to do with the way that his unique gauge works. This character, I mean, you could even go back. Dude, I remember word for word what they said about this character when they introduced him, because it was the dynamic area battle system was like the main focus of this Legends information. And then they introduced the new characters. And I remember the guy talking, because it was like kind of like the off-screen guy. It wasn't Tani. It was whatever the secondary guy was off-screen talking about this guy. And he was like, Goku is extremely powerful offensively. All you need to do is like enter the battlefield and just start swinging. That is like word for word what he said. So when you have a character that is just completely offensively based like this character, why are we giving him a defensive unique gauge? Sustained damage type. This thing is insane. Health plus 15%, damage guard stacking. He's going type neutral here defensively. Supporting the team, reducing ally sub count, and he's destroying 2 enemy cards. And then when an enemy uses a blue against him, he goes type neutral. No, he lowers power by 40%, gets more damage guard, and he's canceling out. Like, why does he have all of this defensive stuff here? I can understand if a character that's designed to be offensive has some defensive abilities. I'm not against that, right? I mean, I don't think that we should have characters that are just so one-dimensional that they can't have any other abilities whatsoever. But they 100 billion% went super overboard with this guy's defensive abilities. And that, to me, I just cannot check off boxes 2 and 3 for this guy. So I got to put this guy in failure. I got it. Okay. What is this? Number 6 is Saiyan Saga Vegeta. This was the other character that released alongside Kaioken Goku in Part 2 of the anniversary. Okay, so again, we'll just go through the checklist here. Return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Certainly don't really have an issue with that at all with this Vegeta. I don't, again, similar to Kaioken Goku, and this is actually a point of criticism that people had for Part 2 of the anniversary, which I think is valid for sure, is these characters, although we got the dynamic area battle system, which I think is still like the best update we've ever received, the characters, the Saiyan Saga characters, there really weren't anything too crazy in terms of like game innovation with the character abilities. And that, I mean, completely agree with that. I do. But in terms of this Vegeta number 1 being viable and having a like very easy to understand use case for being used, for sure. This guy has 2 big use cases, at least in my opinion, for when I used him back during the anniversary. And I think he can still be an effective character right now. It is this right here, based on the amounts of cards he uses on the battlefield. He gets cover and all for the first one and extra damage. And then on the 4th card, he gets like a full hand. So you can kind of use this character almost as like a hand resetting unit. And then obviously the second one is going to be this paired up with his revive. I actually don't know where the revive is. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Revives, it's in the starter ability. Revives with 70% HP paired up with his sub count reduction on standby. So very easy to understand character. I mean, he's like decently good all around. And he's got card reload. He's got a second life. He's got rising rush defense. Overall, I think, yeah, fine. He's not got innovative mechanics really that much, but I do kind of like the design for this guy. Number 2, and I guess we could book number 3 in with this as well. Abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics. And then number 3, disruption and recovery ability bloat. When it comes to recovery, definitely there's no bloat in here. I mean, he's getting health on the main ability, sure. He has revive, but that's like part of his identity, so I don't really have an issue with this. And then in terms of disrupt, this guy does have disrupt. He actually has 2 different types of disrupts. The first one is on battlefield entry. He's drawing a card and he's lowering. Oh, sorry, no, this is not disrupt. This is for himself. The disrupt is this right here. When hit by enemy arts once, and then it shared between before and after reviving, and then this destroys 2 enemy cards, reduces enemy key by 30, and then seals all enemies' main abilities. The reason why I don't have an issue with this at all, and in fact, I would actually point to this as a very good example of how to design a character's disruption mechanics. Activations reset when unique gauge becomes full. So what does this want you to do? This wants you to actually be active in filling up his unique gauge, charging his gauge, and then to actually reset his unique gauge, he has to use cards with the full gauge. So they're telling you, we want you to be proactive, we want you to be aggressive, and then we will reward you on the defensive end for being aggressive by giving you a reset on your disruption mechanics. This, in my opinion, is really how they should be giving characters disruption abilities. So I really am a fan of this. So when we talk about disruption and recovery ability bloat, I guess you can kind of point this and say, well, this guy shouldn't really have this much disrupt or whatever, but if they're asking you to fulfill a condition that promotes like actual like healthy gameplay and rewards you for that, I have no issue at all with this. So I think this is a good example of disrupt. So to me, this really is the first character that does check all 3 boxes in terms of satisfying the conditions that they've laid out themselves for a good release in terms of their design philosophy. So I'm putting him in success. Okay, next we have Ultra Namek Goku and Ultra Full Power Frieza. I'm just going to take Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta because we're just going to lump all these guys together in the same boat. I don't even need to go through the kits of these characters because we're just simply going to do this. Right? This is a huge, huge issue with the design philosophy that they themselves have laid out in this newsletter. It appears to us, and again, I could say it appears to me, but I'm saying us because this is a sentiment that I think is shared by 98% of this game's audience. There is a sentiment that Ultras are simply immune to the new design philosophy. And that does certainly seem to be accurate because, I mean, again, we'll just quickly mention the points here. Battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. None of these guys check that box, not even close. And then number 3, also, disruption and recovery ability bloat. Hell no. So all 3 of these guys are going in failure. It's not even close, right? None of these guys are even close to making it into success. It's not close. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly remove these guys because I don't need to go in depth on these characters. You guys would all agree. I'm sure that 98% of you guys would agree that all 3 of these guys deserve to be in failure. Okay, now moving on to Kefla. This is the first major premium release after the 7th anniversary. So number 1, battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Definitely think Kefla checks that off. Again, there's nothing like, oh, Kefla didn't introduce like a new mechanic to the entire game or something like that, but the fact that really her defining ability is this right here: vanishing step, vanishing gauge plus 70%. Also, the fact that she's getting unique gauge charge rate gradually throughout the match, paired up with the unique gauge itself, which is a charge type unique gauge. So you can vanish, get your vanish back, use a strike card to get your vanish back, and then start comboing, get your unique gauge filled up really quickly with the charges. And again, reset your hand. And this character, as an offensive character, this is actually a perfect character, I think, to compare to Namek Goku. Or not Namek Goku, sorry, Kaioken Goku. Kaioken Goku and Kefla are both marketed as being like supremely offensively oriented characters. But the difference between Kefla and Namek Goku is, for whatever reason, they decided to give Namek Goku just like overly, crazily insane disrupt and defensive abilities. Right? Again, like I said earlier, I am not opposed to offensive characters having some good defensive abilities. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, I'm not opposed to fully defensive characters having, decently good offensive abilities as well. But you can't really veer too much out of your role, right? And again, that's the second point I have here. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. Does Kefla do that? No. Does Kaioken Goku do that? I would argue that he does. So for Kefla, her defensive ability, let me just see this. This is Disrupt. This is definitely not what I would consider to be overly egregious Disrupt, right? Destroying one enemy card and lowering enemy key by 30. It's like what every character should have, at least, right? It's this. When on battlefield, an enemy activates a blue card or a Rising Rush or an ultimate. Healing by 30% and lowering ally subcount by 5. That's not really crazy. I mean, compare this to what Kaioken Goku is doing. Kaioken Goku has like 3,000 paragraphs about defensive abilities compared to Kefla, right? So I do actually think Kefla is designed in a much more fitting way that matches up with what they stated in the newsletter here. So I have no issue putting Kefla in success. Kefla, honestly, one of the shining examples of how they should be designing characters. So I feel really good about having her in success. All right. Metal Cooler. Actually, wait, is 13 not on here? Oh, no, he is. Wait, who's not on here? Super Saiyan 3 Goku. Super Saiyan 3. Is Super Saiyan 3 Goku not? Give me 1 second. I might have missed him. All right, I refreshed the page and he showed up. I might have moved him somewhere and I just didn't remember where I moved him to. Let me just put him here for later. Metal Cooler. So I made a comment earlier in the video talking about Demon King Piccolo, where I said Demon King Piccolo is one of the worst design characters we've ever seen. They somehow figured out a way to give us an even worse designed character mere months later with Metal. I legitimately think this is the worst character ever designed in the game. He's the #1 worst designed character in the game. And the reason why I say this, and I said this before, is this character was doomed from the whiteboard phase. I'm calling it the whiteboard phase because I'm essentially just thinking of the Legends team. When they design characters, they kind of like write on a whiteboard just like a brief summary of what they want the character's identity to be and kind of like roughly what they want them to accomplish. When the second they sat down and said, we want a defensive character with two comebacks, at that exact moment, this is the worst designed character in the game. Because you can't do that. You can't make a balanced character with 3 lives. You can't. Especially one that has that's supposed to be a defensive character. The only way they could have done this is if Metal Cooler was like some supremely crazy offensive character, but he had like 1 HP or something, and he had 3 lives, right? If he had like Hero Hercule level defense, but he was like some insanely crazy offensive character, but he had 2 comebacks, he could be pretty insane, right? But they went down the worst possible path they could have with this character and made him a defensive damage sponge. And essentially what happens is you put this guy on your team, he takes a gazillion damage in the fight, you end up going to timer, and then you just lose the damage. So I mean, I don't have to sit here and go through the checklist on this guy, because there's just nothing about this guy that's noteworthy or discussion worthy whatsoever. So I mean, he's just going into failure. I mean, there's nothing about this guy at all that I can even talk about here. So let's get him out of here. The next character we have is Super Saiyan 3 Goku. This is the GT Super Saiyan 3 Goku. So let's again go through the checklist here, because I actually like this character. Number 1, return to battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. I do like the way that this guy is designed as kind of like a 2-pronged character in terms of what he's bringing to the table in terms of support. Support in the form of damage for just all characters, and then extra support specifically for GT allies. And then on top of that, he does a lot of damage, right? His whole kit is essentially built around his unique gauge. It's a charge type unique gauge. You can get your vanish back. You draw a green card to feed into Vegeta, and then Vegeta just kind of tears everything in half and destroys everything in 2 seconds. And that is the essentially what this guy's bringing to the table. The one kind of question mark for me is this. I don't even know why this exists, the final counter. To me, I guess what this is a Proud mechanic. The final counter probably is just specifically for Proud, because Proud just goes to timer every single time. So this is probably a mechanic you just use in Proud to rack up as much damage as possible to help you win the damage calculation at the end of the match in Proud, because you're not finishing the match in Proud. Like, matches in Proud, you don't just kill the opponent's characters. Like, it's going to timer. But yeah, again, he's got some defining abilities here that I think are pretty. Again, they're not like super unique, but you know, they're unique to this character. Character should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much out of their designated roles. Yeah, I mean, this guy doesn't have anywhere close to the level of disrupt that some of these other units do. One thing I think is very effective is this. This I found to be actually really crazy. Enemy key -30 on enemy character confrontation. When you're comboing with someone like Android 13 or the Gammas, and you're tagging in and out, every single time you switch or tag, you're having your key reduced by 30. And your card draw speed lowered. Right, this is actually pretty effective as a defensive ability, but I would not call this egregious to the level of something like Ultra Full Power Frieza, Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta. Like, he's not doing anything to that degree on the defensive end, so this isn't bad enough to where I don't feel comfortable checking the box there. And then disruption and recovery ability bloat, definitely don't feel that that's egregious. I mean, he has healing for the team here, and he's healing himself here, right? Health plus 4% when he draws a card, and then when enemy's attack is over, he's healing the whole allied team by 5%, which you can force activate by just swapping or cover changing out when you're getting hit on this guy. But like, this is not egregious. Like, 5% is whatever. So I don't really have an issue with the way this guy was designed. The only thing that's kind of a question mark for me on this character is like why the final counter even is like a, because they marketed the final counter on this character as like one of the big defining traits of this character, and I just don't get it. I don't know. It looks really cool. The actual animation is good, but in terms of it being a functional ability, it doesn't really, at least in standard, doesn't really do a ton of damage. And I'm not sacking this guy off in most cases just to get that final counter off. So, but I like the character. I'm going to put him in success. I think this is a success for sure. Okay, and then the last character we have here is Android 13. This is the newest release, just came out like a few weeks ago here. Number 1, battles where a variety of elements and distinct character abilities are viable. Definitely. I mean, this is only the 3rd ever LF character we've ever received that is a support type. And I certainly think that he does fulfill his role as a support type very, very well. Number 2, abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics without encroaching too much outside of their designated roles. Yeah, I mean, this guy just straight up does not do very much damage. This guy straight up is not very tanky, but he's got areas of his kit where they could help you on the defensive end, right? This guy's got a second life with the revive mechanic. This guy's got the blast seal, which admittedly I do think is actually a pretty toxic ability, because a lot of times you're comboing the character, you switch into another character because you want to just extend the combo with whatever card they draw. If you just happen to draw a blast, then, well, you can't combo. So I do think that is a pretty toxic mechanic because it has to do with RNG, but it's not really crazy disrupt to the level of where, like again, comparing the character to like Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, full power freeze, it's not on that level. He does have the one-time disrupt, which I do like. Where is it? When hit by enemy arts one time, destroys entire enemy hand, enemy key minus 100, and then seals all enemies' main abilities. Like, this is very, very powerful, but it's only once in a fight, which I think is fine, right? This is like Blue Beerus had a similar effect to this last year for the 6th anniversary, and it wasn't like Blue Beerus was kind of like terrorizing the game. He dropped. So this mechanic in itself is really not crazy, but it's just a nice add-on to what this guy is bringing to the table. Number 2, abilities are not too broad. Characters should have defining characteristics. Oh, I think I already said that. Never mind. The last one, number 3, disruption and recovery ability bloat. This guy does have very, very powerful recovery. Ally health plus 10% on the return to standby base ability. And then when he has the unique gauge filled up and he swaps that, he's giving another 5% health to the whole team. This for sure is very excessive healing. But the reason why I don't have an issue with this is because that is the exact style of character this is. This is a support type LF character. This is what he's supposed to do. If this guy was like a damage character and he was doing like crazy amounts of damage, and then they also gave him healing here and healing here and support here and support here and support here, I would call that out as being terrible. That would be bad, right? We don't want a damage dealing character with all these crazy support effects here. That's not the way we want this to go. But because this guy is designated as a support type character, I have no problem with this, because that's what he should be doing in the first place. That is what his role is. The last thing to mention about 13 real quick is actually very similar to what I talked about with this Saiyan Saga Vegeta. I really like how they are encouraging you to be proactive and go on the offensive with 13 to fill up his unique gauge, because he's giving the majority of his support once you've actually taken the opportunity to use cards with him and fill up his unique gauge here to provide the damage. This is actually the opposite of Blue Saiyan Saga Goku. I don't want to throw a stray at Blue Saiyan Saga Goku, but I much prefer this type of design for a support character than Blue Saiyan Saga Goku, because what does Blue Saiyan Saga Goku do to have to support? Literally all he does is he just swaps out once. He's supporting by like 40, swap out twice for 40% damage inflicted to the whole team. This guy, I mean, again, he is giving support when he swaps out from here, and then also just from his starter ability, right? Where is it? Right here. But he's getting the bulk of his value in terms of support from actually filling up the unique gauge by attacking and then swapping, and then it refreshes itself, and you kind of just cycle through that same thing over and over and over again to get his maximum value. I really like that because it encourages a much more healthy way of playing the game, I think. So 2 thumbs up for Android 13. He's definitely going into success. So this is going to be what I end up with in terms of character design that fulfills the stated objectives of the newsletter that they gave us 6 months ago. Overall, not a very good score. We have 1 out of 6 anniversary characters actually in the success tier. And then the one shining light, at least to me from this list, is they started off extremely weak, right? DKP into Kid Goku, into UI Goku and Evolution Blue Vegeta, into Kaioken Goku, into Namek Goku and Full Power Frieza, into Metal Cooler. That's like a 3-4 month span of just straight misses in terms of fulfilling their intended objectives with the character design, besides Vegeta. But then we have Kefla, Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and Android 13, who I think are all designed very, very well, at least specifically relating to the new character design philosophy that was stated in the newsletter. So this to me is a good sign, but I don't know what they were thinking with like these characters in terms of the design philosophy, right? And again, I'm not saying full power freeze is not good, right? Obviously, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta is not good. I'm not saying Kaioken Goku is not good. I'm not saying UI Goku is not good. They just don't match up with what was stated here. They don't. And so I think this is a problem. Like this is a problem with the game, right? Kefla, well designed. Super Saiyan 3 Goku, well designed. Android 13, well designed, in line with the newsletter. But then when we have characters like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, that just don't line up with the newsletter, like how is that fair to the characters that are faithful to what they were trying to do here? It's not. It's not. So this is a problem that I hope they will continue to address moving forward. But again, we've had a lot of releases recently that have fulfilled a lot of these conditions that they stated in the newsletter. So we'll see what they do. Let me know what you guys think of these ratings here for these characters. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of these placements, and let me know if you agree or disagree with the criteria that I put here. All I'm doing is I'm just going through what they're talking about in the newsletter, and I'm just rating how the characters were designed based off of what they said themselves that they were going to do. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next one.